Inside Out 2 introduced us to some interesting new emotions. However, few know that there were many emotions that didn't make it into the movie. That's right, the creators of the saga designed many interesting emotions that couldn't be included. We'll talk about that here. Today on Charlietales, I'll show you all the emotions that were discarded in the production of Inside Out 1 and 2. Ready? Let's go! Let's start with love. This emotion represents what you already imagine, pure affection towards another person. In its first design for Inside Out 1, it was a kind elderly lady in pink, but for Inside Out 2, they redesigned it to look like this enamored girl. Why so different? Well, the elderly lady for Inside Out 1 makes sense since Riley was just a child, and her concept of love only worked towards her parents. But in Inside Out 2, Riley is now a teenager who can fall in love with someone from school. So the girl with a love-struck face made sense here. Unfortunately, both versions were left out of the movies. Greed. It represented Riley's desire to possess things just for herself. This emotion was thin with a trapezoid-shaped head. In this conceptual design, it was green, and we can see it holding a memory with a jealous attitude. Greed wants to keep everything for herself. Guilt. This emotion expressed the discomfort we all feel when we do something wrong and feel guilty. This emotion had two designs. In the first one, we can see it as a large magenta creature with a depressed face, but for Inside Out 2, it had a rather slim redesign and a costume that looks like a thief's. Desperation. This represents the mental chaos someone feels when cornered by a difficult situation. This emotion was planned for the first movie and had two designs, but it was ultimately discarded when they preferred to give its characteristics to Sadness, who also appears sad and blue. Hope. This emotion looks like a fairy and represented that desire we all have for something good to happen. It resembles a magical fairy godmother, since children see hope in a more magical, rather than philosophical way. Irritation. It is a fusion of anger and disgust. It symbolized the annoyance one feels when something bothers them. As we can see in this conceptual art, Irritation had a tired face and crossed arms, resigned to something that is bothering her. Shame. She was a different version of embarrassment, whom we met in Inside Out 2. Shame represents a more negative feeling, Riley's discomfort when she feels humiliated. We're talking about a darker shame. It can be seen in its appearance. On the other hand, embarrassment is more childish and even funny. As an extra fact, shame was considered to be the villain in Inside Out 2, but production decided to discard the idea because in its perspective, all emotions should exist to protect Riley. But shame seemed to be an emotion that enjoyed its failure. That's why they eliminated it. Pride. This emotion had a quite simple form and was one of the first ones created. That's why it doesn't have many notable elements. It symbolized satisfaction for one's own achievements and abilities. In several conceptual arts, we see it as one of the first 5 main emotions. As an extra fact, in early stages of production, emotions were going to have names. In the case of pride, he was going to be named Preston. Schadenfreude. This emotion has a German origin name and would be translated as pleasure in others' misfortune. We're talking about that evil pleasure that many have felt when things go wrong for someone they dislike. Its name could also be translated as satisfaction. This was a mocking emotion and would have worked to show a bit more of Riley's quote-unquote evilness. Surprise. This was also going to be one of the main emotions, but it was discarded very early since the creators considered that surprise could be included in the capabilities of Fear, who is surprised by everything. Unfortunately, there are no official surprise arts, so I made this one with artificial intelligence. Another extra fact. According to the creators, Surprise was going to be orange, and that's why in the first movie, we see many orange things in the settings. For example, in Riley's shirt. This has the colors of all her main emotions. But why is there orange color here? Well, this is because Surprise was going to represent this color, but they took it out. In Inside Out 2, they finally gave this color to anxiety. Suspicion. She was going to express Riley's ability to detect important clues. That's why she looks like a private investigator with a magnifying glass in her hand. However, this emotion also had a more particular second design. This time she looks like an 80s private investigator. She looks discreet and always noting clues. Finally, the emotion was discarded, but its analytical traits can be seen in disgust. Specifically when in Inside Out 2, she uses special technology to detect Riley's friends' gestures. Disgust knew they were hiding something. Jealousy. This character was going to represent the discomfort one feels when someone else has what you want. It's like the envy we met in the new movie. But envy is a more positive emotion, while jealousy aims at the negative. Jealousy went through many redesigns. First, it was a thin, loud emotion. Then it became this kind of little witch. In this other version, it was a grumpy and sophisticated lady. And finally, the animators also had the idea that jealousy and envy were twin sisters. And since their emotions are similar, the fun was for the other emotions to have trouble telling them apart. But finally, jealousy was deleted, and we only stayed with the little envy. Distrust. This emotion was male, and was supposed to show us Riley's skepticism when he does not trust a person or situation. As we can see, he was going to be a gray emotion with brown clothing, but it was finally discarded. Rebellion. This emotion was specially designed for Riley's adolescence, and represented every young person's need to go against the system. As we can see, he was based on a rebellious boy with spiky hair. And those are all the emotions I could find with conceptual arts. There are other lost emotions like logic, pain, and hatred. But there are no images, conceptual arts, or known data about them, so I can't tell you much about them. What I do want to show you to finish are the original designs of the emotions we saw in Inside Out 2. Embarrassment. As we already know, he was shown as a big pink guy, but he had several designs, like this little guy with a big nose, and they also had this design with the appearance of a teenager. Anxiety. She wasn't very different in the conceptual arts. In fact, she was just like what we saw in the movie, but with a bluish-green color. Envy. Before being the sweet little girl we knew, she was first thought of as this thin man. This was closer to the feeling of envy, but the bad one. While in the movie they gave her a more childlike envy approach, like the kids who want to have everything. Boredom. In its early versions, she was going to be this bald man with a bored face. DC's changed it to this thin woman with French features. And in the end, they kept this idea to leave her as a French girl, but with a noodle-like body. And finally, nostalgia. In her case, her original design was always that of an elderly lady. But as we can see, there were several versions before reaching the old lady we knew. But anyway, that's all for today. If you liked the video, you would help me a lot by leaving a like. That would be legendary. Also, remember to subscribe because I'll be uploading more videos about your favorite movies. Thanks for listening. My name is Charlie, and I'll see you in the future.